What up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. It's Rob with Extreme Boating. Today we're going to talk about how to flush your outboard out properly, and we're also going to talk about how to fix your Guardian if it's tripping off at your console, or maybe even if you have a tiller at the actual outboard itself. So if you're anything like me, which most of you are, you're going to be running through just a lot of general junk in the lakes you fish in, to get back into those deeper waters, or as you're running in general. So you'll pass through a lot of weed mats, just junk, right? So I'm sure at some point some of you guys have heard your Guardian tripping off at 4,500, 5,500 RPM. So today we're going to talk about how to take care of that and flush out everything in the process. So stay with me. I'll be right back. So these Mercury 40 through 60 horsepowers have an issue from the factory, which they don't talk about, which actually is this right here. You can literally see right through that. And these inlets right here should be protected by some sort of mesh, which they are not. So it makes it a lot more susceptible to picking up junk as you run on the water. This can trip off your Guardian mode, so we'll go ahead and take care of that right now. So we're gonna go ahead and slip one of these guys on to do the outboard flush from the bottom at first, and then we'll move up to a different area. So make sure that's centered up with the water inlets, and go ahead and thread in your hose. Make sure it's all nice and tight. And then go ahead and turn on the water, and you can start up that motor. Okay, water's on, we're all hooked up, and we're ready to start. Go ahead and let that run for about 5 minutes or so, just to make sure we get everything out of there and get that motor flushed out nice and properly. And then we're going to do a quick reverse flush, and I'll show you how to do that. We will be back. All right, we're all good, we're square. On the bottom at least. All right, so we're moving on up here. So there are two ports here. One's an exhaust, one is the actual pee hole itself. So you're gonna go ahead and take your hose and thread that in to the top. Now if I could thread this. And you make sure that's all the way in, and you're good to go. Now the whole idea with running it on the bottom as long as you do for 5 minutes is to make sure that the thermostat up top opened up. That way once you go ahead and flush it from the back, or when you do your back flush, the water can flow in a reverse fashion. All right, so we're hooked up. I went ahead and turned the water on. Don't turn it on as hard as you would on the bottom. Go ahead and crank it open maybe like 1/4 to 3/8 of the way from fully closed. And then what's gonna happen, you'll actually see, now you got water running out through these inlets here. And it's nice and warm too. So in essence, you're back flushing it, or doing a reverse flush. There is one more method to do this if you really want to clear out things properly. And you're going to run this method after you've run it here from the bottom for about you know, 2-3 minutes. Make sure everything's out of there, or as good as possible. All right, so we're set to go. We went ahead and did our traditional flush and our reverse flush. So theoretically, you got just about everything that went in out, but that isn't always the case. So what we're gonna go ahead and do here is remove the thermostat, which is located right here. It's actually just above the oil filter. So let's do this in real time. And what we're gonna do here is clean out the thermostat as well and do a major flush from an open port. So here's the housing, and here's the thermostat. See if we can get it out. Yep. I've done this before, and it's insanely easy to do. Oh yeah, sure enough, we do got some junk here that might actually prevent it from opening or getting caught up. I don't know if you could see that right there. A little bit of weeds going on in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this out. I'm gonna remove this gasket, wipe it all down, clear it out real nice, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall it. But before that, we'll do a back flush, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So the way the back flush is done here is insanely easy. So this port right here is about the size of a garden hose. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna go ahead and take your hose and just shove it up in there. Open up the water and you can go. And you'll see some water peeing out of the outlet, which is, there we go. You can see some coming out from the bottom, right there. And you'll run it like that for just a minute. And don't be afraid of all this water coming down into the cowl. There are some integrated drain holes down here, so nothing will happen to the electronics or anything like that. And after you feel like you've done it for long enough, then you can go ahead and release, kill the water. And you're good to go. All right, so the T-stat's been all cleared out. Nothing left there. So it is time to go ahead and install this thing. So just go ahead and line it back up in there. Make sure that your gasket is in place. Now sometimes if your thermostat is old enough, I would not advise just clearing it out like I am. This engine has less than 40 hours on it, so it's not a big deal for me. If you've got over 100 or plus 100, then I would somewhat suggest replacing it. Go ahead and threaden your bolts. Make sure that's in there good. And then you're good to go. All right. And now that you're all done, go ahead and throw your cowl back on. And that's it. You're done. All right, so let's do a quick recap on what we learned today. Mercury has a major design flaw. They don't necessarily talk about it, nor do they acknowledge it. Dealers do know about it, They don't necessarily talk about it, so they can charge you a little bit more, or so they can charge you in general if you're not under warranty. There is no on the water hot fix for it. If it's occurring all the time, then either you have another code tripping off Guardian, or you just have that much junk in there. This is a quick inspection slash fix that will help eliminate the cooling system out of the equation. If you run through a lot of mats and garbage, if you run in lakes that are just all weighted up, and it's all there on the surface and your water inlets suck it up, it's gonna happen to you. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Happens to me pretty often. I just deal with it as it comes. This is actually the second time I've had to do it in my short year span ownership of it. There has been a lot of junk on the lakes. Like I said, it's gonna happen. Those tongs that I got to flush the outboard, you can find at Walmart, West Marine, Bass Pro, pretty much any store that offers marine things. You could also find it online. They're really easy to find. They're labeled outboard muffs. So you just type that into search if you're online. You should find it relatively quickly. Now, the reason why that alarm trips off is because at higher RPMs, you require more water pressure in order to maintain that RPM. So at about, 45, 5,500, 6,000 RPM, anywhere north of that, you should roughly be seeing about, if I remember right, it's about anywhere from 28 to 31 psi. So it's quite considerable. If there's a blockage in there, it may be minute. It's gonna happen. You're gonna get that alarm going off. Now, pulling the thermostat's not absolutely necessary. It's not the end-all be-all in order to do your fix. Some might get away with just doing a traditional flush and a reverse flush. In some cases that works, in others it doesn't. I always recommend you remove that thermostat, inspect it, just see how it's doing. It's easy to get to, it's 2 bolts, pull the cowl off, it's right there. So why not? If you have over 100 or even 150 hours and over on that engine, you should probably consider replacing it, or at least inspecting it, seeing how it's looking. Other than that, that's about it. Like and subscribe as always. I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate all of the comments, questions, anything you post. I'm always here. I always read them. I always try and reply. So outside of that, that's it. Thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you next time.